Hi, I'm Wayne.
Hi, I'm Mariana.
I'm Harsha. And this is our project on renewable energy sources.
So our question here is, how does the different types of renewable energy affect the economy and the environment?
And our solution is renewable energy sources are able to produce reliable, cost-effective, environmental-friendly forms of energy.
So defining renewable energy. Renewable energy is basically the sources of energy that depend upon environmental factors such as the sun or wind. This form of energy is a counterpart to conventional energy sources such as coal, crude oil, or natural gas. Hence the term renewable, because it's able to be reused once more. So some types of the renewable energy sources are solar energy, which have two different systems such as photovoltaic and solar thermal systems, wind energy, biomass, geothermal, and hydrothermal. Solar energy. So photovoltaic systems are easily accessible and are usually used in a small scale sort of way, so like houses and factories. It's fast and efficient because the surface of the Earth receives 120,000 terawatts of solar radiation. So to put that in perspective, that's 20,000 more volts than that's 20,000 volts more than what we need to power the entire Earth. Photovoltaic systems are the most quick and efficient forms of renewable energy because they're able to directly transform solar radiation into energy for use. So lately, photovoltaic systems have been used more and more for independent things such as houses. And if you can see in the picture, that is how it converts solar radiation. And if you can see here, there's been a global increase in the use of photovoltaic systems. Solar thermal systems. So solar thermal systems are kind of the same as solar voltaic, but they're on large scale and they're usually used to produce energy for towns and larger factories. So it's efficient and it's been developed to be more and more efficient lately. And it has a no intermittence period, which means it's a period of time where it's not able to gain like sunlight or wind energy, so it can't produce energy. So what happens is with photovoltaic systems, they can't produce energy without sunlight, but with solar thermal systems, they can because they've been hybridized to use fossil fuels on the off periods of no sunlight. There's three different types of systems. There's a parabolic trough, there's power towers, and dish engine systems. Oh, wind energy. Wind turbine systems are the most common type of renewable energy source that is used. It's usually on a large scale to power cities, and if you go out and drive, you can see large farms. They're efficient and reliable, and it's the same as solar thermal systems. They have low intermittence period because the fans are specially designed in order to catch wind easily, such as breezes.
So some environmental impacts. The first one is reduce global warming emissions. So fossil fuels contribute greatly to the amount of carbon dioxide that is contributing to the greenhouse effect. However, with renewable energy, it rarely emits any source of carbon dioxide. The second impact is replacement of non-renewable sources. So fossil fuels contain conservations of the earth, and these gatherings of these materials ruin the surroundings of the earth. So with renewable energy sources, we can, these are like infinite sources. And finally, the improvement for public health and environmental quality. These non-renewable sources emit toxic waste such as air pollution, and this like ultimately affects public health such as breathing problems, cancer, heart attacks, and it also ruins the surrounding of the environment. However, with the renewable energy sources, it does rarely emit any sorts of hazardous types of waste.
As for the economic impacts, currently the renewable energy could generate on an average of about 3,000 terawatt of energy per hour. But the IEA, the International Energy Association, believes that there can be a 5 times growth of this, jumping to 16,000 terawatts produced. And because of this, there's now a creation of a new market, a green economy in the U.S., funding for new jobs and factories and industries creating the materials required for renewable energy. And also, the government is now providing support for this, creating a new residential tax, allowing for residents who use solar energy and wind power to have tax rebates and incentives, allowing them to pay less taxes, promoting it even more.
So some of the limitations, as I stated before, was intermittence. So that's mostly been solved throughout solar thermal systems hybridizing with fossil fuels and the specially designed blades on wind turbines. For production is very, some of the limitations of production is in solar voltaic systems, the cells of them, they're very sensitive and need to be able to capture sunlight in order to exploit its power and energy. So that's really, it needs special exotic materials, and the cells require rare precious metals. So that also might damage the environment when you must mine for minerals. And for land and insulation, it's very expensive and it requires a large amount of land because they need to be able to power enough energy to produce a high yield in order to be successful. So as you can see here, this is all that's inside one cell, and it requires a lot of different materials. And this is just the sheer size of one of the solar farms.
So our solution, with increased research and development on this topic and renewable energy sources, we can eventually have reliable sources of energy.
Thank you. Okay, so let's finish off the questions. Having finished your project, what if anything do you consider to be a gap in your team's research, if addressed, would make you feel more confident about the conclusion side?
Can you repeat that, please?
Sure. So what about, having finished your project, what if anything do you consider to be a gap in your team's research that, if addressed, would make you feel more confident about the conclusion?
I feel like we could have addressed the fact that hydrothermal is one of the largest producing, but when you take that into account, because hydrothermal usually uses large amounts of water, so it's able to produce a higher yield, but solar cells are used to create, they're used more commonly, so that's one difference I could have added.
Okay. Ariana, what was the strongest counter argument to the solution or conclusion you guys identified and why?
So one of the sources of renewable energy was wind, and this has been a problem for since the start of it. It's been causing some deaths to airborne organisms. So.
Okay. Describe how the content of the team's presentation was changed as a result of group discussion.
Throughout the group discussion, because I only researched about the economics, but then applying the environmental and science different perspectives on it, I then realized that there was many different limitations to the economic, not only just economic benefits, but the ratio of the land and how much production cost it is can also take a part in it, as well as the environmental impact of the materials being used and damaging the environment as a process.
All right, thank you.
Okay.